Breaking news is in as the Chicago Bulls have made a trade. It looks like that Zach LaVine is going to be on the move. We're going to be talking about the most recent trade here for the Chicago Bulls and what this means for this team moving forward. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so before we go ahead and jump into today's show, I wanted to let you know that about 62.4% of you that watch are not subscribed to the channel. So make sure that you go ahead and mash on that subscribe button as we try to reach our end of the goal subscriber count here. So let's go ahead and jump into the most recent news around the Chicago Bulls, as it looks like that the Sacramento Kings, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Chicago Bulls are coming to, it looks like finalizing a deal here that is going to send Zach LaVine over to the Kings. You have De'Aaron Fox going over to the San Antonio Spurs. And so we have some actual details to what this deal is actually looking like. And so you see for the Bulls, they are going to get Tre Jones. They're also going to get Zach Collins and Kevin Huerter. You see that the Kings are going to get Zach LaVine. They're also going to get 3 first-round picks, and they're also getting 3 second-round picks as well. You see that the Spurs are getting De'Aaron Fox and then also to Jordan McLaughlin over there as well. And so let's start with just the Chicago Bulls and just the reactions here from that. And so I think initially what you're going to see out of this is that if you are in the camp that you wanted this team to tank and you wanted this team to get their 2025 pick back, by all means, well, you got that because they got their own pick back in this trade as well. So if I didn't mention that, they got their own 2025 pick back, and so they got that. And I just wonder initially, with the way that this team was trending, as far as, the losses that we had seen with this team, it really suggests that maybe they could have possibly held on to Zach LaVine, kept Vooch, and still trended towards keeping that draft pick. And I think that is something that maybe we might look at maybe sometime down the line. But you would have had, I think, maybe some more options as the time goes along towards the trade deadline, or maybe even, when it comes down to the offseason as well. I think maybe you have some more cards to play here, but we're not going to know that. The Bulls felt like that they needed to go out there and get their 2025 draft pick back, so they get that. Congratulations. I mean, we know that this pick is going to be in a deep draft, and so it is going to be now all about the Chicago Bulls executing there and making sure that they get the hopefully franchise player that they need to put this team in the right direction. But then when you look at the pieces that they got back with Tre Jones, with Zach Collins, with Kevin Huerter, I don't see any of these players necessarily being with the Bulls long term at this point in time. I think that when you start with Kevin Huerter, he's a player that can knock down the 3 ball. I think initially his fit is perfect for what the Bulls are trying to do right now for this season. And he also does play a little bit more of the wing. He does kind of mix into the guard. So I guess from a roster construction, maybe that makes a little sense for right now. With Zach Collins playing the center position, maybe that indicates that maybe the Bulls are perhaps getting ready to pivot off of Vooch. You now have Zach Collins, you now have Jalen Smith, and you have Sanogo right now as far as your bigs on the roster, along with Vooch. And so maybe, again, they're getting ready to move off of Vooch, and so this gives you a little bit of insurance there. And with Tre Jones, look, he's a player that initially I think the Spurs were high on. I'm not sure if he's necessarily going to find his way with the Bulls, especially since they have Kobe White, they have Ayo, and they also have Josh Giddey. And so I think that is going to be interesting to look at. I've said this before with this team. I don't think that there was going to be any trade that was going to get this team in the right direction right now, where it was going to just start to win multiple games. There was no such trade out there where this team was going to get back players, or a player that was going to just suddenly turn this team around and get this team to start winning. It's not going to happen. It was more so about picking a direction. And so I'm not sure if you necessarily picked a direction with this trade. Like I said, you did get your draft pick back. That's fine. That's great. You needed that. But you also, too, you have a little bit more question marks with these contracts that you've taken in and how you're going to move off of that. And I think that that's going to be really interesting to monitor, because this just suggests to me that AK has some more work to do with this roster, because it's just not anywhere where it needs to be from a roster construction standpoint. And you add questionable players like this and how their fit is going to be long term, that question mark, I think just it becomes bigger for me what this team is going to do. And so next up with the Spurs. And so the Spurs, I think that they clearly get a win in the sense that they get De'Aaron Fox back, or not De'Aaron Fox back, they get De'Aaron Fox. And I think that they were glad to go ahead and give the Bulls their pick back for De'Aaron Fox, because they get a player that is going to set them up for the next, 10 years or so. And so I think that they absolutely get a win here. And the Kings get a win as well, because I think that the Kings, now with all these picks that they have coming back to them, with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, you get players that have played together in Chicago. They've had a little bit of success, and so you know that they can get it done if they're locked in. LaVine, I feel like, to me, he could have been an all-star this year. I've loved the way that he's performed this year. I've talked about this several times with him. There's a real possibility that he might become a part of the 50-40-90 club, because he's playing that well. And so with the Kings, you get somebody that is going to instantly get you to still be in contention, but there's a strong possibility that this doesn't work out because it hasn't worked before. You have the insurance policy right now with the draft picks, and so you've got to give the Kings a lot of credit. This is a tough situation for the Bulls, because I think when you look at this as a whole, you see what it looks like to be a real facilitator in this deal. When you're a facilitator and you get teams that are giving up the most, sought after player, essentially they're going to be the ones that get the best assets. And I think that that's what happened here. And so if we're grading this trade, I feel like initially, with the way that the draft capital shakes out for the Kings, I mean, you could maybe argue that they kind of actually won the trade here, because they got ahead of what was going on with De'Aaron Fox. They also get some draft capital that certainly is going to help them. And with the Spurs, look, they actually would be second in winning this trade. I think that you could probably rate them at second or a B or whatever you want to put them at, because they got a point guard in the future that's going to work just fine with Wemby. And like I said, they were just fine giving up the Bulls, or giving back the Bulls 2025 draft pick. Like, that is nothing compared to what they still have. And they get a player like De'Aaron Fox, who's definitely in his prime. And I just think for the Bulls, it becomes a lot more questionable, because we knew that maybe there were some rumblings around Golden State. There were maybe some rumblings around the Milwaukee Bucks. And you just wonder, after this deal, could there have been something else that the Bulls maybe could have gotten if they would have stayed patient? I'm curious to see where this team goes, because I seriously think that it just makes you have to put a little bit more faith into AK, into this front office now, to really steer this team into the right direction, because there's so much left to do with this. You didn't get nearly enough draft capital back for me, and you secured a pick in which you probably were going to have outright if you just kept on your path, because you were losing games as is. And so very questionable how this works out. My initial thoughts is just it's not probably going to be liked very much by, I think, our Chicago Bulls fan base. I'm not really a fan too much of it. I still got to see what else AK is going to do. But initially, I'm just kind of like about that. I think you could have gotten something better. But anyhow, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that the Bulls definitely could have got something better here? Maybe if they would have played a little bit more patience with this, or do you think, the Bulls got the steal right now just by getting back their 2025 draft pick? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are here. So anyway, just want to tell everybody out there to make sure that you go ahead and mash on that subscribe button. Make sure that you continue to hit that like button as we try to reach our subscriber count. And one last thing that I want to leave with out of this is that we have been hearing multiple first rounds for Zach LaVine, multiple first or seconds for Vooch, and we didn't come anywhere close to that today. So I think that is another reason why you might be a little disappointed with this. And so anyway, go Bulls. I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.